Welcome back to Parenting Pulse.
Hey, I came across something called jazz parenting online. Interesting. It's about improvising like a jazz musician instead of following strict rules. We talked about Dr. Klein's approach in our last episode, wondering if she talks about that in Raising Resilience. She said rituals are about regulation, not control. Sounds similar?
Klein doesn't mention jazz parenting in her book. She's all about structured stuff like bedtime routines or asking, "What's on your mind?" to help kids regulate emotions, not control them. But I saw the blog called the 730 Project that describes jazz parenting as improvising with a toolbox of ideas, like adapting to your kids' needs on the fly. It's not a big term in psychology, though.
Great. So, what's this all about? And why should parents care?
Well, it's not a big academic term, but it's a neat metaphor. Picture parenting like jazz music, improvisational, flexible, and creative. You have a toolbox of skills, like tips from books or advice from friends, but you adapt them in the moment to fit your kids' needs. No rigid rules, just going with the flow.
I love the vibe. So, if my daughter's upset about a small thing, like a friend not sharing, jazz parenting means I might validate her feelings one day or distract her with a game another, depending on what she needs.
Exactly. It's really about reading the room and going with what feels right in the moment. You might hear all kinds of advice, like from Dr. Klein's Raising Resilience or ideas from positive psychology, but you don't follow one script. Sometimes you ask open questions like, "What happened with your friend?" to get your child talking. Other times, you might switch gears and do something fun to lift their mood, like Barbara Fredrickson suggests with boosting positive emotions. Research supports this kind of flexible, responsive parenting, like what Ainsworth found back in '78, that paying attention to how a child is feeling and adapting in the moment helps build their emotional strength and security.
Got it. So, if my son's upset and comes home with a bad grade, jazz parenting would mean just going with what feels right.
Yeah, exactly. You might use Klein's trick, ask, "How do you feel about that grade?" Or if he's not into talking, do something fun like shooting hoops, like the jazz parenting blog suggests. It's about reading the moment, not forcing a ritual. But Klein's routines are more reliable for kids who need predictability, like Grandin's sensory calming ideas.
Nice.
But how does jazz parenting stack up against something like Klein's approach in Raising Resilience? Klein's big on rituals like daily check-ins or bedtime stories to help kids regulate emotions, not control them. Isn't that pretty structured compared to jazz's freeform style?
Good point. Klein's rituals and routine, like asking, "What was the best part of your day?" every night, create predictability, which research supports for reducing behavioral stress in kids. Jazz parenting is less about set routines and more about spontaneity. If your daughter's upset, you might try a check-in, but if she's not in the mood, you improvise. Maybe suggest a silly dance instead. It's less planned, but still child-centered. The benefit? It's great for unpredictable moments or when you're juggling tons of parenting advice.
Okay, so jazz parenting shines when things are chaotic or you're not sure what to do. But what about compared to, say, Fredrickson's positive psychology approach? She talks about using positive emotions to build resilience, right?
Yeah. Fredrickson's Broaden and Build theory from 2001 says, positive emotions, like joy from a fun activity, help kids think flexibly and bounce back from stress. Jazz parenting aligns here because it lets you pivot to positivity, like playing a game to cheer up your kid after a bad day. The difference is Fredrickson's approach is more deliberate about creating those positive moments, while jazz parenting might do it on the fly. For example, if your daughter's upset about a small issue, jazz parenting lets you decide in the moment, validate her feelings, or go straight to a fun distraction.
Got it. And we've talked about structured environments, like that Japanese research on visual schedules reducing uncertainty. How does jazz parenting fit with that?
For example, in Japanese studies, especially ones about helping kids with sensitivity, show that having a schedule can stop meltdowns because it makes things more predictable. Jazz parenting is kind of the opposite. It is more spontaneous. It's all about being flexible. So, if your child gets upset when the schedule changes, a structured approach one might use something like a visual chart to prepare and help them understand what's coming next. But jazz parenting would notice when a child feels anxious and then switch things up then, maybe by suggesting a calming activity like going for a walk. The good thing about jazz parenting is that it's flexible, but it might not work as well for kids who really need a strict routine.
Interesting point. How about Temple Grandin's sensory regulation ideas? She emphasizes sensory overload is a major trigger for distress and meltdowns. Things like harsh lighting, loud noises, scratchy clothing, or chaotic spaces can overwhelm the nervous system. She's all about reducing sensory overload, like dim lights and quiet zones to prevent meltdowns.
Jazz parenting could incorporate that, like improvising a quiet moment if your kid's overwhelmed in a noisy room. The jazz benefit is you can mix Grandin's sensory tricks with Klein's emotional check-ins, or Fredrickson's positivity, whatever fits the moment.
So, jazz parenting's big win is its flexibility. Perfect for parents who feel overwhelmed by perfect methods or when kids throw curveballs. Research like Ainsworth's backs that responsive vibe, but it's less structured than Klein's rituals or Grandin's sensory focus. Any risks?
Totally. There is no hard data, so jazz parenting's more a metaphor than a proven method. It risks being too vague. So, without specific methodological approach like Klein's clear rituals or Grandin's specific sensory tips, parents might feel lost. It's best for small, everyday issues or creative families, but kids needing consistency might do better with Klein's routines or Grandin's sensory strategies.
Love it! So, jazz parenting's like jamming to your kid's rhythm. Great for spontaneity, but pair it with Klein's rituals or Grandin's sensory tweaks for structure.
You know, I really wish we'd had this kind of info earlier in our parenting journeys. It would have saved so many headaches and back-and-forth moments.
Totally. Having these insights up front could seriously help parents dodge those big storms and just keep things moving forward more smoothly for both kids and adults.
Makes the whole experience feel a little less chaotic and a lot more connected. And that's a wrap for today's Parenting Pulse Check. Next time, we'll continue our quest to uncover these fresh, innovative approaches to parenting to help navigate this journey with even more insight and heart.
The good news is that kids are amazing at receiving. It all starts with us. We can begin today. Change doesn't happen overnight, but by taking small steps, growing together, and embracing the journey, we get to witness those positive shifts unfold.
I find myself thankful for my kids countless times every day. They make me a better person in the most beautiful way. Meanwhile, we can try a little jazz in our toolbox, but keep those rituals on deck. Till next time, happy parenting.